Hello there. Today we're going to discuss one of the basic functions of Excel, which is the function if. We're going to start with the function syntaxes. After that we will go through the function basics. We will also see how can we optimize it using some tips and tricks. Take a look at the alternative function ifs, and we will conclude with the points of attention, which will help you to avoid mistakes or surprising results. In our example, we have the table of fruits and the respective price per unit. And let's imagine we want to understand whether the fruit is expensive or not. We start with if function. The first argument is the logical statement. The price is over $80. In the second argument, we need to put the output which we want to have in case this statement is correct. Let's put yes, because yes, it is expensive. And the third argument is the output in case the statement is incorrect, which means that if the price is lower than 80. In this case, we will put no because the fruit is not expensive. We expand the formula. Okay, let's try to play a bit with this formula. First of all, we don't need to necessarily put the hard code data inside. Let's link it to this cell. Of course, we need to lock it by using F4 button, push OK, and again expand the formula. Now, if we change this value, the results will be changed automatically. Definitely, the lower is the price, the more fruits are defined as expensive. This approach is very helpful because you don't need to rewrite the formula every time. However, in real life situation is usually a bit more complex. And for instance, our data may contain empty cells. Let's see how can we deal with empty cells and to ensure that they don't impact our analysis. We need to add additional if function. And in this case, when we use more than one if functions in one formula, we call them nested if functions. So what we need to add is the additional element to the existing formula, which will check whether the cell is empty or not. And if the cell is empty, we need to indicate it. So in order to do it, we put additional if function and we add the following check. We say if equal to empty cell, then we don't need to go into further comparison versus the target price. We simply say no data. And if the statement is not correct, which means that the cell contains some information, then we need to go into the usual formula, which we wrote in the previous step. And in this case, since we added additional open bracket, we need to close it at the end. Let's copy the formula. Now we will see information that there is no data. And if we add some information here, even if it's 0, then there will be some comparison. So as you can see, formula becomes a bit more complex and requires the attention. Recent Excel versions allow you to have up to 64 nested ifs, but in my experience, having more than 5 nested ifs makes the formula uncontrollable and actually uncheckable. On the previous step, we considered a relatively simple statement, but what if we want to make it a bit more complex? We have an option to do it by using the operators AND or OR. AND operator is applied to few logical statements, and it becomes true when each and every of them is true. On the other hand, OR operator is true when at least one of the logical statements it is applied to is correct. In this example, on top of the price per unit, we also have the information on number of days in which the fruit will be expired. And here we want to calculate fresh and cheap fruits, those which cost less than $80 per unit, and for which the expiration date comes at least in 2 weeks from now. Again, we start the formula if and we use AND operator because we need the fruit to meet both criteria at the same time. Okay, so first of all, the price must be lower than $80. We put a delimiter, and now we need to put the second logical statement. Number of days must be more than 14. Again, don't forget to lock the cell, close the bracket, and then if this is true, then we can say yes, and if it's not true, then it's no. As you can see, none of the fruits meet both criteria, but if we put here number 15, it definitely meets the criteria. In the explained example, we use 2 conditions for AND operator. Actually, you can use 3, 4, 5 or more. In exactly the same manner, you can use in formulas the operator OR. In this example, we have the same initial table of fruits and the respective prices. However, now we want to segment them not in 2 groups only, which is expensive or not expensive, but in price segments A, B, C, D, and here is the definition of the price range. In order to do it, we need to use multiple if formulas. Let's see how can we write the formula. We start with if, so let's start from the top. If the value is more than 100, we put A class. If not, we need to open another if. If the price is more than 86, then we put B. If it's not true, we need to open another if. If the value is more than 61, then we put price class C. And we don't need to have another check. We know that in all the remaining cases, it will be class D. So we put D, and now we need to accurately close all the brackets. Let's push enter, and expand the formula. As you can see, it works properly. Unfortunately, even in this simple example, the formula becomes very, very long. And there are a few tips how to deal with this. First of all, please pay attention to the fact that the open brackets and closed brackets have different color, and they help you to understand where is the beginning and the end of the formula, respective to each brackets. Another important thing which will help you to read the formula is the usage of Alt-Enter. This technique could be applied not necessarily to if formulas, but actually to any formula. If you push Alt-Enter, the formula will move to the next cell, and then you can push another Alt-Enter, it will go to the next. As you can see, the formula is much more readable and it's much clearer to understand what's inside it. However, if you deal a lot with nested formulas, you may consider alternative, which is the formula ifs. Let's take the same example and let's try to build the formula using the formula ifs. So the formula ifs works in the following way. First of all, you put the logical statement. So we say if this is more than 100, then let's put A. But now after the second argument, you can use the second logical test. And second value if it's true. If the value is more than 86, then it's B. And again, we can repeat the same thing. If the value is more than 61, we put C. The peculiarity of ifs formula is that there is no space in it for the cases when all the logical statements are incorrect. The easiest one is to put at the end, after you went through all of your cases, just the statement which is always correct. For instance, 1, and then you put the value D for it. In this case, if all of the preceding statements are incorrect, it will always give you D as an answer. We push enter and we expand the formula. Let's look again at the formula. It looks definitely much easier because you don't need to repeat if multiple times. You simply put all your conditions one by one and the potential outputs one by one. And before we conclude, I want to show you a few peculiarities of if function, which could be helpful to avoid some surprises or mistakes going forward. The first one is when you work with the dates. As you can see in these two cells, there is the same date but in different format. In this case, they will be always treated as equal by Excel. The format of the date is disregarded. It's just the date itself, which is important when you make a comparison. Don't forget that the date in Excel is treated as a number. So this is the same date, but in number format. If you compare this date and this number, you will again get true as an output. The next important element is to be accurate with the formatting of the cells. In this case, as you can see visually, you see 30 and 30, the same number, but in this case it's a number, and in this case I deliberately put the formula which transforms it into the text. And as a result, when you compare these two, they are not equal. And the last example is about the formula itself. From time to time, people forget to put the last argument, which is the value in case the statement is incorrect. And in this case, the result will be false. It makes sense to pay attention to this to avoid surprising outputs. If is one of the core functions of Excel, and being fluent with it is mandatory for you to develop further. I hope after this video you can get much more comfortable when dealing with if functions. Thank you and see you in the next one.